You mentioned regrets.
Mm.
What were some regrets you identified?
Man, probably just the pedestrian kind. The Elizabeth Kubler-Ross #1 regret of the dying is I wish I had not worked so hard. I wish I had not worked so hard.
How did you get that moment of clarity? Because I've heard that, and I'm like, looking back on it, yeah, in my 30s, I wish I hadn't worked as hard. But I feel like I've got a decent balance now. And I don't know, if I'm 80, who knows how many years you have, and I'm looking back on my life, maybe I'll wish I hadn't worked as hard. But what made you say that?
I think the #1 thing would be realizing the wounding it caused to my family. So I don't have quite the right, or to rephrase, I don't think I have the optimal personality to be the lead pastor of a Protestant type of large church. I'm a little bit too introverted, or a lot too introverted. And I don't have the capacity for activity that I think is required, or at least very helpful. And the challenge I face is I have probably, with no false modesty, I probably have a much higher than average capacity to get crap done. Like, I'm a task-oriented personality. I can get a lot.
So you can crank.
Done. I can crank. I'm a hard worker. But I actually don't, I probably have a lower than average capacity emotionally. So what I get is I have this glass ceiling, and it's like every single day, it is a temptation to blow through this glass ceiling. And the glass ceiling is basically, this is what I can do and get off work and be a pleasant dad and husband. And this is what I can get done. And there's a huge gap. And the pastoral role, and it's a bit better now, but still startup, leadership, self-employed, like those have their own similar challenges, as you would know. It's really hard for personalities. Like, I think a lot of people that are drawn to pastoral work, either they're drawn to people and they may have a propensity for people pleasing, especially like traditional pastor personalities, or people like me, teacher types, they might have a draw toward a moralism, even in a healthy version of moralism. Like, I'm deeply drawn to virtue and goodness, and I don't think that's all bad. There's certainly a shadow to it. But the challenge is, like, you have demands coming at your time that are a black hole. You could never, ever possibly satiate all of the demands. And if your penchant, your weak point is like you'll sacrifice yourself to please people and make people happy with you, or in my case, you'll sacrifice yourself to try to be the good person or the good pastor, or, because everything's moralized when you're a pastor. If somebody says, hey, can we have coffee this week? And you have no time to have coffee this week. If you say no, it's not like, oh, he said no. It's like he's a bad pastor and therefore a bad Christian. And like, imagine that if you're just an introvert and nobody else sees your life, they just see their angle on your life. And it is so hard to resist that. And so, you say yes too much. And I think part of the challenge of that retreat for me was, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you can blame the overwork and the exhaustion on the church. This is a black hole of need. This doesn't go away. It's insatiable. We don't have enough staff. We just need to get to the next season. We need to get through this campaign. We are dealing with drama right now. And then you get into your 40s and you're like, wait, no, this just is church. Like, Scazzaro said that to me at one point. He's like, it's not that pastors deal with crises. It's that the job is to deal with crisis. It's just like crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. That's the job. And I don't know if I've said this to you before. I remember I was reading, this is not a political statement at all. I read wildly. I read tons of stuff I disagree with, but I was reading Obama's memoir, which is I love his mind. It was so well written. And he had this 2-page bit on how 90% of the presidency is two things. One, it is dealing with whatever crisis came up that week. And two, it's dealing with problems that you inherited from your predecessor. And he said, only if you execute on the 90% extremely well do you get to spend 10% of your time doing what you actually got into politics to do in the first place. And I remember reading that thinking, holy cow, that's like what it's like to be a local church pastor. It's like 90% of your job is getting through Sunday and dealing with crises. And only if you can do those two things, and only extremely well, do you even get the 10% of time to do what you actually
This is what I'm called to do.
Care about, which for me would be formation and community, And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I think getting into my 40s, I was faced, like I had no more good excuses for why I was overworking. And I had no one to blame anymore. And I had to realize, okay, there's an internal thing in me. There's a drive. A coach said to me recently, very lovingly, he said, you are addicted to opportunity. And it was just like,
right there. Yeah.
And another mentor kind of person said to me recently, hey, if you do 10% of the things that are in your heart, that'd be a really good life. And he meant it as an encouragement. And I was like, what? I have so many great ideas. 10%, that would be a failure of a life. And he said, no, if you do 10% of your good ideas, that would be a great life. And I thought, I don't even know how to think that way. I'm going to do one of these 10 things that I'm passionate about. And so I just think, it was just, I had to face reality, Carey, and how much of my drivenness, the great challenge. I think there are few jobs like pastoral life or Christian leadership where it is easier and more dangerous to do the right thing for all the wrong reasons, because you can spiritualize it in the same way that, the world will reward workaholism, even if it's full-on pathological coping. It will reward, like certain addictions will put you on the street in downtown LA, and other addictions will put you in a house in Malibu. But they're going to have the same effect on your relationship with your kids. And the world will reward you for one and punish you for the other. And the church, in a weird way, will reward you for addiction to
your
work,
dysfunctions,
addiction to people pleasing, addiction to goodness, addiction to, X, Y, and Z. And I just think I had to face that. And it was really hard and continues. I wish I could say like, man, and that was it. And now I'm done. And now I never overwork.
Not true.
Not true. But I'm doing better. And I think that's I have this extraordinary therapist. And he said to me recently, I never use the word healed because it makes it sound like a one and done point in the journey. And he said, I like to talk about healing. So from that paradigm, I'm not healed, but I'm healing. And I just think we don't think that way enough. How do I make 10% progress and compound interest, but applied to the formation of the soul? How do I become the kind of person who 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now is quieter and more peaceful and still generative and hardworking and servant-hearted, but unhurried. And again, the language of Scazzaro is embracing the gift of limits. But I just rebel against limits. Are not a gift. Limits. They are like a,
Yeah.
I mean, they are a gift, but I don't feel that way.
This episode.